Hey guys, SuperHorrorBro Mike here, and in today's Bendy and the Ink Machine video, we continue with part 2 of our deep dive into the story of Joey Drew. What happened to turn Henry's old friend into such a twisted nightmare? Well, if you haven't seen part 1 yet, pause this video and go check it out. In that video we discuss everything that happened up to the point of Joey's failed theme park, Bendyland. In this video we pick up right there. Joey Drew was in financial danger. He needed to come up with an exciting new idea, and quickly. Something that would capture the hearts and minds of both audiences and his investors. That idea was to try and create living cartoon characters to inhabit Bendyland, and put it back on track, turning it into the colossal wonder he had originally envisioned. So how did Joey intend to pull this scientific feat off? Well, you may remember this logo on your adventures through the studio. It is of course the logo for the Gent Maintenance Company. This company outsourced various workers, including Thomas Connor, to Joey Drew Studios to maintain the building and keep things running smoothly. They seemed to be a company involved with engineering and design. We hear Thomas Connor himself mentioning their involvement directly.
Progress report to Gent Home Office. Client, Joey Drew Studios. What started as a machine to simply mold life-size figures now seems to be teetering on the edge of magic more than engineering.
So Joey approached the Gent company with his idea, and it seems they took payment and got to work on its creation. This required Joey once again to expand the scope and scale of his cartoon studio. He began creating entirely new floors deep beneath the studio, secret research and design areas where he and his team of Gent workers could operate away from the prying eyes of his animators and other creative minds above. It was here the Ink Machine was most likely pieced together. The collaboration between Joey Drew and the Gent company spawned more than one iteration of the machine, but eventually a final design was built and ready to test. And Joey decided his first creation would of course be the dancing demon that brought him so much success in the past, Bendy. The problem was Bendy didn't turn out the way Joey expected. Instead of a mischievous replica of the cute character found in the cartoons coming out of the studio, Joey instead ended up with this thing. A mangled, soulless reject that Joey and the other workers involved in the project found terrifying and worried would scare away investors. And so they locked Bendy away, and Joey came up with an inhumane plan to rope in a naive voice actress called Susie Campbell and use her soul to create a living version of Alice Angel. You see, Joey realised after creating Bendy that he needed souls to bring his creations to life properly. They needed a personality. At this point, we should quickly reference a book Joey wrote around this time, a book called The Illusion of Living. While likely a book about the animation process, this title gives us insight into Joey's twisted mind and his plans to get involved with both occult rituals and weird science. His fake motivational speeches also display Joey's dark nature. In these recordings, he preached false promises in order to manipulate his overworked employees.
With true inner strength, you can conquer even your biggest challenges. You just have to believe in yourself. Okay, let's stop it right there. I can only do so many takes of this trash a day.
Joey has long had ideas that are both overly ambitious but also work against the best interests of those around him. So back to Susie. Joey, the master manipulator who wanted a living, breathing human with a passion for one of his cartoon characters, approached this vulnerable young actress and made her an offer she couldn't refuse, to become the character she felt part of.
This is the first character I really felt a connection with, like she's a part of me.
You see, Joey had replaced Susie with fellow voice actress Alison Pendle, and I believe he did this not because of Susie's lack of talent for the role, but rather so he could make her feel desperate enough to willingly take part in his first human experiment. Unfortunately for Susie, this didn't quite work out.
The first time I was born from its inky womb, I was a wiggling, pulsing, shapeless slug.
After Susie's failed experiment, Joey seemed to turn his attention to the other workers at the studio, but again, these experiments didn't work as intended. Searchers seemed to be the earliest creations, followed by the Lost Ones, and eventually Butcher Gang members and Boris clones. The latter of which were the closest to replicate the look of a living cartoon, although ironically still have a person trapped inside. At this point, Joey was all out of options, and it seems likely he would have had to close his studio and split ties with the Gent company, who probably got cold feet the second they realised Joey was dabbling with the lives of real people. Not exactly a good look for a major corporation. It seems the whole process was deemed too inhumane to reveal to the public, and so the Gent company walked, leaving Joey to clean up his own mess. Enter Henry. Joey's experiments had been disastrous, but seem not to have been revealed to the world outside his studio. We also get the idea that any worker who got wind of these secret experiments was dealt with, as Norman Polk's audio log states,
"That projectionist they always say, creeping around, he's just looking for trouble. Well, trouble or not, I sees everything."
So it was fairly easy for Joey to contact Henry with the vague promise of having something to show him and not raise any danger signs. It is at this point we must recall the story of two real-life animators, Walt Disney and Ub Iwerks. Remember how in part 1 I explained how Ub had parted ways with his old friend and fellow animator Walt after creative differences and bad treatment. Much like the story of Joey and Henry. Well, Ub actually did return to Disney during the 1940s to work on the movie Song of the South and engineer a new animation technique which allowed for the first time ever for cartoons and real live actors to exist within the same frame on screen at the same time. Live action animation. And this is exactly what happened to Henry when he returned to Joey Drew all those years later in the story of Bendy and the Ink Machine. Joey's workshop had been closed for a while now, and we know the studio Henry explores looks very different from the look of Joey's apartment. Joey's apartment looks how we expect somewhere to look in our reality. It looks realistic. Whereas the studio we explore in the game looks like it has been hand-drawn. It looks like a cartoon. Because it is. But here is where the story seems to take a very dark and morbid turn. You see, Henry seems to be dead, judging by this newspaper clipping found within Joey's apartment. And we know this fate has befallen many of the other workers in the studio too, judging by these coffins. My theory, as previously discussed, is that Joey had created a cartoon world within the ink machine inside his apartment, one that has trapped the souls of old workers and is being sustained and projected by the larger of the two machines within. Basically, this giant machine at the end of chapter 5 controls everything inside this world, hence when Henry plays the final reel titled The End, it essentially ends everything and loops it from the beginning again. Joey is then controlling things from the outside by feeding in storyboards he has created. We also get the sense that Henry isn't the only person he invited back, as we see he has kept close contact with other workers such as Alison Pendle and Thomas Connor. Of course, Tom worked directly on the ink machine, and so had potentially damaging secret information. It seems Joey may have been taking out all employees linked with his company, and then using their souls within the ink machine in his apartment to create a living cartoon world. Each time triggered by the ritual process he has put in place, which powers on the ink machine inside. And Henry is the test subject in this experiment, the person Joey is using to remove all the kinks. After all, who would have better knowledge than his former partner? This seems like a logical conclusion to come to based on the Portal references found throughout the game. Portal is a game in which you assume the role of a hapless test subject trapped inside an old abandoned laboratory. What will Joey do once he has perfected his experiments? Will Henry's loop ever end? And will the souls of Joey's victims ever be set free? For answers to those questions, I guess we'll have to wait for another game, or forever be left to wonder. After all, many of the best stories leave the ending up to the viewer's imagination.
Tell me another one, Uncle Joey.
And that's it for today's video. Please remember to give it a like if you did enjoy watching, and maybe drop a comment too, as well as subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you never miss an upload. This channel specializes in variety horror content, including creepypasta readings, horror gaming facts and theories, and general interest pop culture horror videos. So if you're interested in all things spooky, you'll find something to enjoy here at SuperHorrorBro. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.